refreshing. Alright, let's dive right into this case. Now, this case is absolutely horrible, okay? Like, I haven't heard a case that made me feel this sad in a while. And I've heard lots and lots of cases. This one really got to me. It's not gory or anything like that. It's just really, really sad. So be prepared. Now, this is the case of the disappearance of Susan Powell. She went missing on December 6th, 2009 from Utah, from a town near Salt Lake City called West Valley City. Alright, so let's talk about the background of Susan and her husband Josh and how they came together and what transpired between them. So let's start with Josh. Josh Powell was born on June 20th, 1976. He grew up in Washington State, in a town called, I gotta read this one, and if I mess it up, I am really sorry. It's spelled P-U-Y-A-L-L-U-P. Pile up. Maybe. Let me know in the comments if you know how to pronounce it. Okay, so that is where Josh grew up. And he had 2 brothers and 1 sister and 2 parents. Their family were followers of the religion Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, which I believe is the same thing as Mormon. But if I'm wrong, let me know. So anyway, things weren't going too well between his parents, partially because of the fact that the father didn't want to stay with the church. And when they divorced in 1992, a lot of information came out in the divorce records. And that is where we find out that young Josh had a lot of problems. First off, his father, whose name was Stephen Powell, had been sharing with him and his brothers pornography. I don't know to what extent or what type, but he was when they were children. And there could have been more to that we just don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Josh had killed his sister's gerbils. He had attempted suicide, and he had threatened his mother with a knife when she asked him to wash the dishes. So, anyway, he went on to go to college at the University of Washington in Seattle, and he was pursuing a degree in business, a bachelor's in business. And that was in 1998 when he headed off to college. He probably lived at home though, I think. Susan moved right in with Stephen. Things did not go very well there, if you ask me. Stephen became sexually obsessed with Susan in a huge way, and it's not like anyone could have missed it. He would follow her around openly, taking videos of her all over the place on his camcorder. He would also sneak images of her while she was in the bathroom when she didn't know. He would try to, catch video or photos of her when she wasn't dressed. He had 17 notebooks where he wrote down things that he thought about her. He wrote songs about his feelings about her, and he put them on the internet under a different name. He would steal her underwear from the laundry, and he would read her diary. Now, he also would take videos of himself talking about his feelings, and in one he discussed his extreme level of lust for her like he's never felt before, and he discussed his most erotic experience ever, which was a day when Susan was not feeling well and she had a cold. He offered to rub her feet. He placed her feet in his crotch while he rubbed them. And, well, I don't have to go into it too much more, but you get the point. Okay, so he really found that experience to be totally sublime. And in 2003, he confessed his feelings to her, and he asked her if he was reading the signs correctly, and was she also into him. Now, this is also on audio tape. He taped her. And she said, where are you going with this? I am your daughter-in-law, and that's how it needs to stay. Mind you, there was 31 years between them. And, I don't need to tell you that that's his son's wife. Anyway, at some point he tried to kiss her, and shortly after that, they moved out. They moved to Utah. And she wanted nothing more to do with Stephen. But, Josh didn't feel exactly the same way. He was his father, and he kept contact with him. And that was kind of a point of contention between the two. Also, he no longer wanted to be involved in the church. So that was another thing they were fighting about. And there were financial problems. You see, Josh was a big spender, and he spent beyond his means. So, now she had found herself a nice job working for Wells Fargo as a broker in Utah, and she was doing well. But he was in so much debt, over $200,000 in debt. she was afraid. But anyway, she saw a divorce lawyer for information, and he told her to take some videotape footage of their home and all their possessions and all their assets, just to have in case anything should happen. So she did, and that video is available to watch. She goes through the house and she shows you everything they have that's of any value, whatever jewelry she has, and she says that she is doing this in case anything happens, basically. Nothing specific suggesting anyone is going to specifically do anything to her, but that was that. Then she also wrote a secret will, just wrote it on her own on like notebook paper, and put it in her safe deposit box. And on that, she wrote that if anything happens to her, if she should die, that it probably wasn't an accident, even if it looks that way. And she would like her 2 children to be taken care of by her parents. Okay, so moving to December 6th, 2009. So that morning, Susan and her boys, they were age 2 and 4 at that point, they went to church, just the 3 of them. And then they came home from church, and a neighbor came over to hang out with them for a while. The neighbor said that Josh was making dinner, and that was something that he never did, she said. And then the neighbor left around 5. Next morning rolls around, December 7th, 2009. And Susan doesn't show up for work. And the boys don't show up at daycare. So a phone call goes out to Susan's family, and one of Susan's family members goes over to her house and sees, doesn't seem like anyone's there. There's no tracks in the snow suggesting nobody left. For some reason, she thinks they're all in there and there's a carbon monoxide leak or something. So she calls the police, and they come down and they say to her, well, if you want us to break the window, you have to guarantee that you're going to pay for fixing it. So she does. They break in. There's nobody there. But there are 2 box fans blowing on a wet section of carpet in the living room. And Susan's purse is there. And women don't leave without their purse. Okay? So now everybody's trying to figure out what happened to them. Where are they? Everyone is missing. All 4 of them are missing. Around 5:30 p.m. that same day, Josh's sister gets him on the phone, and she's like, where are you? And he said, I'm at work. And she said, you're not at work. She said, the police are looking for you and your whole family. So he said, okay, we went camping. And she didn't believe him, she knew something was up. But anyway, he arrived home around 6:40, I think. And that's what he told everyone. I went camping with the boys. And we left while Susan was asleep last night. they found like some blood, some traces of blood. But I mean, it was their house, you know what I mean? People have traces of blood in their house, just a thing, you know? Anyway, that blood would turn out to be attributed to Susan and an unknown man at some point down the line. Not immediately, though. Anyway, a couple days after the disappearance, they brought Josh and his kids down to the police station. And of course, Josh provided them with no information, you know. And the kids, well, the little one, Brayden, 2 years old, he really couldn't say anything. But Charlie told them that they all four went camping, but they didn't come back with Mommy. And that's really all they got from him. But it was something. So they told the father, hey, your kids are in the next room telling us that Mommy was there and she didn't come back. So he said that his kids are just lying, and you just can't believe things that kids say. But in the weeks that followed, Charles told his teacher that his mother is dead, and Brayden drew a picture for his preschool teacher of a minivan, like the one they drove. And there were 3 people in it. And he told her that his mommy was in the trunk. And they tried to interview Charles a second time, but he said, I am not supposed to talk about Susan. So that was the end of anything coming from him. So obviously he had been coached, you know. Anyway, a couple weeks later, Josh and his 2 kids moved out of the house in Utah, and they moved back to Washington and moved in with Stephen. And then another person of interest came up. Josh's brother, Michael. Turns out, shortly after Susan's disappearance, he had brought his car to a salvage yard in Oregon. And when the police went to check out that car, they brought a cadaver dog. And the dog did sniff some scent of human remains in it. But nothing came up with any conclusive DNA. So that didn't really go anywhere, but it is suspicious. And he didn't have an excuse either. Now, another thing that was interesting to note is that a friend of Josh said that Josh once said that a good idea if you wanted to hide a body, you should hide it in an abandoned mine. Now, they have lots of those in the desert in Utah. He said, you put it in the abandoned mine, then you kind of knock over some of like the tunnel on your way out, and everything will just crumble in on it, you know what I mean? So it's a very odd thing to say, but it made them think maybe Susan is in one of these mines. But that's like finding a needle in a haystack. And since she was not found, he was not being arrested, even though they had all this kind of circumstantial evidence. There was no body. He had also taken out life insurance on her 2 years before of $500,000. Josh and Stephen agreed to go on a televised obsession that he had with Susan. But he made it sound like it was a mutual thing, which it wasn't. Now, the police got a search warrant for Stephen's home, where they were all living at this point, and they found some very disturbing things. They found thousands of images on his computer. They were photos of women who didn't know their photos were getting taken, voyeuristic photos, and even some of children. One was of the girl that lived next door, used like a telescopic lens to take photos of her in the bathtub. Stephen was arrested for voyeurism and child porn, and he was sentenced to 30 months for the voyeurism and 2 more years for the child porn. So off he went to prison. Meanwhile, with all of this going on, Charles and Braden, their custody was taken away from Josh, and it was given to Susan's parents. And at first he was having supervised visitation in like some designated spot, but he got himself his own rental house, and he insisted that he should have the visitations there. So on February 5th, 2012, there was a scheduled visitation, and the boys were brought over by a female social worker. She was there to supervise. So she pulls up to his house. The boys go running out of the car straight into the house, and the father says to them, "I have something special for you." And he slams the door in the face of the social worker and locks it. So the boys are inside with him, and she is locked outside. So she calls 911 and she tells them what happened, and they're like, "Alright, well, we have, a lot of emergencies going on, and we'll get someone out there when we can." And she's like, "Listen, this is an emergency, just like any other emergency. I don't know what's going on inside." She said, "I heard the father say he has something special for them." And they're like, "Alright, we'll get someone there right away." But it couldn't be fast enough, because moments later, the house blew up. Yes. That is the sad truth. 2 little boys and their father inside the house. And it went up in flames right in front of her eyes. Later it was found that before the explosion, he had attacked them both with a hatchet. They were found with lots of hatchet wounds on them, and there was a hatchet laying there. Then he poured gasoline on them, and I guess lit something somewhere, and the house blew up. Is that not the worst thing you've heard? Like, I can't even imagine. Now, a few minutes before all this happened, he had sent out an email to a number of people saying goodbye. So he knew what was going on, and he had purchased a couple of cans of gasoline. And that's pretty much where that ends. But there is a little bit more. Susan's body has still never been found. There were some guys who thought they found it in a mine, and it was like a big story, but it seems like when it was all said and done, it wasn't her. The bones belonged to animals once they were, sent for DNA. And there was a pair of pants that turned out to just have men's DNA on it. So they're going to keep looking into it to see if maybe it was Josh's DNA on it or something, but as of now, it's not thought to be her. So she has not been found. And everyone who would have known is gone. Now, in the year 2020, the state of Washington had to pay Susan's parents $98 million for negligence in the case, and they talked about donating that money to charities. So that's it. Gives you a lot to think about. Tell me some of what you're thinking, though, and I will tell you some of what I am thinking. So, obviously, this guy, Josh, was a complete monster. No doubt. Total monster. I mean, he was one of those typical, if I can't have you, then no one can have you type guys, right? I mean, that's pretty much how this all probably got started. He could see that their marriage wasn't working out. She was looking to get out of the marriage, and he wasn't having it, so bye-bye to her. Okay, and that is already horrendous. Absolutely horrendous, okay? So, it's quite possible that his brother helped him. I don't know why his brother would help him, and we don't know, and we are not going to find out, probably because nobody's alive. But it seems as if the brother was helping him. Maybe he did it, and then he called his brother and said, "Oh no, look what I did, can you help me?" Maybe. It's just a guess. And probably Stephen knew what happened, but we don't know. So it wasn't terrible enough what he did to his wife. Okay? Then he decides, hey, well, I lost custody of my kids. That's terrible. Well, why don't you just work at getting the custody back, okay? That might be something a rational person would do. But no, he decides, hey, maybe he had the same thought. I can't have you, my kids. Nobody's having you. We're all out of here. Or he decided, I better get rid of them before they can talk. They're getting older. They might tell the story. They might be believed. I gotta get rid of the both of them. And I may as well go as well. Because I've messed up my life. And I don't want to go to prison or whatever. So, that's another potential reason why he killed his boys. So terrible. Picture these, don't even picture it, okay? It's too bad. It's too terrible. But these two boys are excited to go see their dad. And they go running from her car. They run into his house. They're so happy. He says, I got something special for you. So they're excited. And then what is the special thing? It's a hatchet. Why do people like this exist? Someone please tell me why. Why do we need people like this in our society? Clearly we do not. I mean, we can say, oh, he had a rough childhood. He was probably abused by his father.